The night she changed everything. What would you do if the person you built your entire life around, your home, your children, your identity, looked you in the eyes one Tuesday evening and said, "I'm going on a date with someone from work"? Not a question. Not an apology. Just a statement. Like 19 years was nothing more than a footnote. Most men would beg. Most men would scream. Most men would spend the next 6 months chasing someone who'd already decided to leave. Jerome Carril did none of that. He gave her one warning. She ignored it. And then, he simply vanished. What she discovered after he was gone broke her in ways she never saw coming. Stay with me. Because this story isn't about revenge. It isn't about bitterness. It's about what a man discovers when he finally chooses himself, and the earth-shaking price one woman paid for taking that choice for granted. My name is Jerome Carril. I'm 47 years old. I'm a CPA, a certified public accountant, which means I've spent my entire career working with numbers. And numbers, I've learned, never lie. I run a small practice downtown. Nothing glamorous. But honest, steady work that put 2 kids through college and kept the mortgage paid on a home I was proud of. My daughter Aria was finishing her junior year at Northwestern, sharp as a blade, studying marketing. My son Benjamin had just started his 2nd semester at Ohio State, engineering track. I was proud of them with my whole chest. And Ruby, my wife of 19 years, was the woman I thought I'd grow old with. I thought I had everything figured out. Then came that Tuesday. The story begins. It started like every other evening. Tax returns. A rotisserie chicken from the grocery store. A quiet dinner alone at the dining table while Ruby texted she'd be home late. Another client dinner. Nothing unusual. I was scrolling through photos Benjamin had sent from campus, him and his roommate at a basketball game, when I heard Ruby's car in the garage. The familiar click of her heels across the tile floor. The clink of a wine bottle being pulled from the rack. "There's chicken left if you're hungry," I called from the living room. I ate already. Flat. Distracted. I didn't think much of it. I went back to my spreadsheet. Then she walked into the living room, wine glass in hand, and stood by the fireplace. Just stood there, staring at our wedding photo on the mantel. The one from Lake Michigan, both of us laughing, so young we barely recognized ourselves anymore. "Jerome, I need to tell you something." I looked up. Her face was perfectly calm. Almost eerily so. Like she'd rehearsed this moment a dozen times in the mirror. "I'm going on a date with someone from work." The room tilted. For a second, maybe 2, I genuinely thought I'd misheard her. My brain simply refused to process those words in that order. 19 years. 2 children. A life built from scratch. And she was standing in our living room, telling me she had a date. Not asking. Not seeking permission. Just informing me. The way you might tell someone the car needs an oil change. What? The word came out softer than I intended. "I'm going on a date," she repeated, her voice steady. "With Brad from the agency. We've been working together on the Harrison account. He asked me out. I said yes." My hands went completely still on the keyboard. I set the laptop aside. Slowly. Deliberately. Buying myself time to breathe, to decide who I was going to be in this moment. "You're married," I said, my voice level. "We're married." "I know." She took a sip of wine. Her eyes met mine without flinching. "But I need to do this. I need to see if there's something more out there." Something more. After 19 years, I was something less. I stood up. Walked to where she stood. Looked her in the eyes, searching for the woman I'd married somewhere behind that composed, rehearsed calm. She was in there. I could feel it. But she felt like a stranger wearing my wife's face. I spoke quietly. No anger. No drama. "Ruby, if you walk out that door tonight, everything changes. I need you to understand that. This isn't something we come back from." It wasn't a threat. It wasn't manipulation. It was the truth, bare, simple, and absolute. She held my gaze for a long moment. Then she set down her wine glass, picked up her gym bag, and walked toward the front door. "I understand," she said over her shoulder. And she left. I stood in our living room and listened to her car start in the driveway. Listened to the sound of it disappearing down the street. The house settled into a silence so complete it felt like a held breath. They say you know it's truly over when the shock wears off and all you feel is clarity. I felt that clarity wash over me like cold water. This wasn't a moment of weakness on her part. This wasn't confusion or a midlife crisis or a cry for attention. This was a choice. Her choice. I walked to the kitchen, poured her abandoned wine down the drain, rinsed the glass, placed it carefully in the dishwasher. Then I went upstairs, opened my closet, and made a choice of my own. What Jerome did next, through the night, methodically, without a single tear, would set in motion a transformation that Ruby never could have imagined. And what he became on the other side of that door would eventually find her in the most unexpected way. The ghost who came back as a bestseller. Last time, we left Jerome standing in his bedroom, alone, steady, and absolutely decided. His wife had just walked out to go on a date. She expected tears, arguments, desperate phone calls. She got silence. What you're about to hear is what happens when a man doesn't fall apart, when instead of breaking down, he quietly builds up into something his wife never anticipated. Something that, 9 months later, would stop her cold in the middle of a bookstore and shatter the last illusion she had left. The disappearance. Jerome worked through the night with the precision of a man who had spent his entire career making sense of complicated numbers. No crying. No rage. No spiral. Just folding. One piece of clothing at a time. Placed into a suitcase with the kind of care that borders on ceremony. The thing about being an accountant, he would later write, is you learn to see clearly. Numbers don't lie. They don't make excuses. Ruby had shown me her numbers, and they didn't add up to a marriage worth saving. By 3 a.m, his side of the closet stood completely empty. Bare hangers swayed softly from the air conditioning vent. He left every photo untouched, the anniversary trip to Sedona on her dresser, the wedding album on the shelf, every baby photo and graduation picture exactly where it had always been. He wasn't erasing the past. He was simply removing himself from it. Then came the paperwork. Here's where most people miss what was truly remarkable about Jerome Carril. He didn't just leave. He left with precision. He transferred the house deed entirely into Ruby's name. Signed over the lease on her car. Withdrew only his half of the joint savings account, and left her more than her share, plus an extra $5,000. He compiled a folder with every utility contact, every password, every document she'd need to run the household alone. No note. No accusation. No emotional leverage. Just a clean, compassionate severance. His wedding ring went into a small wooden box in his sock drawer. Not thrown away. Just set aside, somewhere she'd find it eventually, if she ever looked. At 6:15 in the morning, his Uber arrived. The driver, a kind-eyed man in his 30s, helped load 2 suitcases into the trunk. "Early flight?" he asked. "New beginning," Jerome answered. "The reinvention." He took a train to Denver. Then a Greyhound deeper into the mountains. By the 3rd day, he was in Ridgway, Colorado, population 800, give or take. He rented a room above a hardware store. $200 a week, cash. The owner, Walt, a man in his 70s, handed him a key without questions. Jerome told him his name was Jay. Simple. Forgettable. He kept his phone off, buried in his duffel. No social media. No digital footprint. No contact with anyone from his old life. He was learning to be nobody, and nobody, he discovered, had never felt so much like somebody. He started walking the town each morning. Noticed broken things. Fixed them. Helped with odd jobs, balanced small business books, repaired fences and leaky faucets. He charged almost nothing. Built a reputation as the quiet man who showed up and got it done. At night, he wrote. Not fiction. Not poetry. Just thoughts, raw and honest, about what it means to walk away from everything you built. About how silence can be louder than shouting. About how dignity costs more than pride but buys you peace. He started a blog. Called it walking away. Notes from the edge. No real name. No photos. 3 people read the first post. Then 12. Then 50. Then the emails started coming in, men from across the country, writing through the contact form, telling him they'd been invisible in their own homes for years. That they'd been taken for granted so long they'd started to believe they deserved it. Jerome didn't offer advice. He just shared what he knew. Leaving isn't weakness. It's self-preservation. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go, completely. The book that changed everything. 8 months after he disappeared, a small independent publisher in Portland found his blog. An editor named Rachel Kim read every post and called him through the contact form. "Have you ever considered turning this into a book?" she asked. He hadn't. But as they talked, the idea took shape, not a memoir, but a guide. A roadmap for men who had lost themselves in marriages that had stopped valuing them. "I want to stay anonymous," Jerome told her. "No photos. No real name. No publicity." Rachel agreed without hesitation. The words matter more than the face behind them. They worked together for 8 months. Jerome wrote in the evenings after his handyman jobs. Rachel edited and sent chapters back. The process was meticulous, sometimes painful, dredging up memories he tried to bury, but also profoundly cathartic. Each finished chapter felt like another weight lifted. They titled it The Man Who Walked Quietly. The cover was minimalist, matte black, copper lettering, a silhouette of a man on a mountain trail at dawn, face turned away. The author name read simply, J.R. Merris. Sales started slowly. A few dozen copies in the first week. Then a book blogger wrote a review that went viral. "This isn't just a book about divorce," she wrote. "It's about reclaiming dignity when the world tells you to fight dirty." 5,000 copies in a month. Then 10,000. Therapists recommended it to clients. Divorce lawyers bought it in bulk for their waiting rooms. 3 months after release, Rachel called him while he was eating breakfast in his small room above Walt's hardware store. "Jerome, you're #1. The New York Times bestseller list. Non-fiction hardcover." He stood at the window, looking out at the Rocky Mountains that had become his sanctuary, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not pride. Validation. Proof that walking away quietly doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. What Ruby found. Meanwhile, back in Naperville, Ruby came home that night to a silence so complete it felt like judgment. She called his name. No answer. Texted him. Voicemail. Assumed he was sulking at a hotel, playing the wounded husband, waiting for her to apologize. She found the folder the next morning, plain manila envelope on the kitchen counter, her name in Jerome's careful handwriting. Inside, documents that rewrote her world. The house deed. Her name only. Car title. Her responsibility. Bank statements. His half. Withdrawn clean. Her share, untouched, plus extra. A list of utilities. Passwords. Everything she'd need. No note. No accusations. No tears preserved on paper. Just the quiet, devastating architecture of a man who had already moved on. Her first reaction was anger. How dare he make it so final? So clean? She wanted the fight. She wanted the chance to explain herself, to reframe the narrative, to cast herself as a free-spirited woman married to a controlling man who couldn't handle her independence. But Jerome had denied her that. Left her nothing to push against. The fallout came quickly after that. Brad Hutchinson, the man she'd gone on that date with, turned out to be very much married. 2 kids. A mortgage. A wife who found out within the week when an anonymous message arrived with dates, times, and a hotel name. Brad's wife filed for divorce. Took the kids. Half his income. His reputation. HR got involved at the agency. Meetings. Stern warnings. Invitations to after-work drinks stopped coming. The promotion Ruby had been promised quietly stalled. Her supervisor Patricia, the woman who had mentored her for years, looked at her during a performance review and said 5 words that landed like stones. "You made your bed, Ruby." Her parents grew distant. Her sister Kelly asked her bluntly, "Did you really expect him to stay while you dated someone else?" Her father, a retired Marine, didn't call for 3 weeks. When he finally did, his voice was cold. "I raised you better than this," he said. Then he hung up. And the house, her house now, grew quieter every night. But the worst moment? The one that truly broke her. It happened on a cold Saturday afternoon in late November, inside a Barnes & Noble, when she picked up a book with a familiar silhouette on the cover and read the first page. The letters she sent to a ghost. She had told everyone he'd overreacted. For 9 months, Ruby Carril had crafted a story where she was the hero of her own freedom and Jerome was the fragile husband who couldn't handle a strong woman. Then she walked into a bookstore on a cold November afternoon, picked up a best-selling book by an author she'd never heard of, and read a single line that turned her blood to ice. She told me she was going on a date. Just like that. Casual as ordering coffee. The bookstore. The air outside was bitter cold, threatening the first real snow of the season. Inside Barnes & Noble, it was warm, coffee and newsprint and the soft rustle of pages. Ruby was shopping for a gift for her boss. Something neutral. Something professional. A book seemed safe. She wandered toward the non-fiction display near the entrance and scanned the bestsellers absently. Her eyes landed on a cover that made her stop. Matte black. Copper lettering. A silhouette of a man on a mountain trail at sunrise, face turned away, shoulders set with a quiet, purposeful resolve that struck her as familiar. The title read, "The Man Who Walked Quietly." She picked it up. Turned it over. Read the blurbs. A roadmap for dignified departure. This book will change how you see strength. The author photo was just a shadow, a profile with no visible features. The name beneath it, J.R. Merris. She didn't recognize it. But something pulled at her, some instinct she'd learned, too late, not to dismiss. She opened to a random page. Middle of chapter 4. The hardest part wasn't leaving. It was realizing how long I'd been gone before I actually walked out the door. Years of small dismissals. Tiny betrayals. Moments where I was standing right there, somehow invisible. I had become furniture in my own home, useful when needed, ignored the rest of the time. Her hands began to shake. She flipped to the table of contents. Chapter 7. The Night Everything Changed. She turned to that page. Her heart was pounding now. She told me she was going on a date. Just like that. 19 years of marriage and she needed to explore her options. I gave her one warning, clear and simple. Walk out that door, everything changes. She walked without hesitation. I packed through the night. By sunrise, I was gone. I left her everything except my dignity. That, I took with me. Ruby's vision blurred. 19 years. The warning. The packing. That Tuesday night. She bought the book without looking at anything else. Walked to her car in a daze. Sat in the parking lot with the engine off. Started reading from page 1. The dedication stopped her immediately. To the moment I stopped asking to be chosen. She sat with that for 5 full minutes before turning the page. By page 50, she knew with absolute certainty. The details were sanitized enough to be deniable, but she recognized herself in every sentence. The wife's ambition, her drift, her need for external validation while still living inside the marriage. The narrator working late on tax returns while she attended networking events. Fixing the house, maintaining the mortgage, being the steady, invisible foundation, while she made plans that didn't include him. She read through sunset. Through dinner time. Into the night. Sat in her driveway with the dome light on, unable to stop. The book wasn't cruel. That was what destroyed her most. It wasn't revenge. Wasn't character assassination. It was honest, brutally, compassionately honest, about what it felt like to be dismissed. To give everything and receive indifference in return. The final chapter was titled Peace Without Permission. People ask if I'm angry. If I hate her. I don't. Anger requires caring about their opinion. Revenge requires giving them power over your peace. I have neither anymore. She probably thinks I'm somewhere nursing wounds, waiting for her apology. But I don't need her apology. I don't need her understanding. I don't need anything from her at all. That's the freedom she gave me when she walked out that door. She released me from the obligation of caring what she thinks. And in that release, I found myself again. Ruby closed the book at 2 o'clock in the morning. She had been sitting in her car for 6 hours. Her eyes were swollen. Her throat raw. She looked at the house through the windshield, the house that was supposed to feel like freedom but instead felt like a tomb filled with consequences. For 9 months, she had told herself Jerome had overreacted. That he was weak for leaving. This book showed her something different. He hadn't run away. He had walked toward something better, with more grace and dignity than she had deserved. The letters. Ruby started writing the next day. Not to his old email, dead. Not to his phone, disconnected. She wrote to the publisher. Attention, J.R. Merris. The first letter was short, formal. Dear Mr. Merris, I read your book. I think I know who you are. If I'm right, I need to talk to you. Please, just once. Ruby. She mailed it Monday morning. Checked her mailbox compulsively. Morning. Afternoon. Evening. No response. She wrote again. Longer this time. The formality gone. Jerome, if this is you, please let me explain. I made a mistake. I see that now. What I did was wrong. Selfish. Cruel. I just need to know you're okay. Still nothing. The letters kept coming. 11 in 6 weeks. Each one longer, more raw, more desperate. I've lost everything, she wrote in letter 9. The promotion went to someone else. My friends stopped calling. Arya won't speak to me for more than 5 minutes. Benjamin answers my texts with 1 word. Even my parents look at me like I'm a stranger they're disappointed in. I know I deserve this. I know it's the consequence of what I did. But please, just tell me you're okay. Letter 12 described seeing Brad at a coffee shop. His wife had destroyed him in the divorce, took the kids, the house, half his retirement. He tried to speak to Ruby, wanting to reminisce. She walked away without a word. What we had nothing. I destroyed my marriage for absolutely nothing. By letter 15, written at 3 in the morning, wine-drunk and desperate. Do you ever think about me? Do you hate me? I hope you hate me. Because that would mean I still matter somehow, even negatively. The thought that you might feel nothing, that I might be completely irrelevant to you now, that's worse than hatred. At least hatred is an emotion. At least it means I still exist somewhere in your world. Letter 20 described her father showing up unannounced. Standing in the driveway, looking at the deck Jerome had helped him build. He looked at me with quiet disgust. Said 21 years that man gave you, and then he left without staying for coffee. What Jerome did with the letters. Every letter reached him. The publisher forwarded them to a P.O. box he'd set up in a neighboring town. Once a month, he'd drive there, collect whatever had arrived, and sit in his truck in the parking lot. He read the first few letters completely. Her handwriting unchanged after all these years. The words desperate, pleading, soaked in regret. He felt nothing. Not satisfaction at her suffering. Not anger at her audacity. Not even pity. Just a quiet, distant observation. The woman who had walked out so confidently had discovered that consequences don't care about apologies. After the 5th letter, he stopped reading them entirely. He'd open each one just enough to confirm the sender, then file it in a box in his closet, unread. The letters weren't for him anyway. They were therapy for her. Attempts to transfer her pain onto the person she'd wounded. She wanted engagement. She wanted him to respond, to be angry, to give her something, even hatred, that proved she still had a role in his story. But Jerome wouldn't give her that. Not out of cruelty. Not out of revenge. Simply because he no longer had room for it. He was living quietly in the mountains, writing books that helped strangers reclaim their dignity, spending his evenings in peace, sleeping without nightmares. He had become, in the truest sense, free. And freedom doesn't look backward. The final image. Somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, a man named Jay sits at a small wooden table each evening. He watches the sun set behind peaks he's learned by name. He drinks coffee instead of wine. He writes words that travel across the country and land in the hands of people who needed them. He doesn't miss the life he left behind. He doesn't hate the woman who made him leave it. He simply chose himself, quietly, completely, without apology. And in that choice, he became the fullest version of the man he was always meant to be. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, then you already understand why we share stories like this. Because the truth is, most people are walking through their lives being invisible, taken for granted, diminished, slowly disappearing inside the life they built for someone else. Jerome's story is a reminder that it's never too late to choose yourself. That dignity is not something others give you, it's something you take back. If you want more stories that shake you awake, that make you think, that remind you who you are, hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a comment below. Tell me, what part of Jerome's story hit you the hardest? Was it the moment he walked out? The folder on the counter? The book? Or the letters she sent to a ghost who was already free? Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do for the people we love is share the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. I'll see you in the next story. Electric light bulb life lesson. The final word. Jerome Carril didn't leave because he stopped loving Ruby. He left because he finally started loving himself. Here is what this whole story teaches us, in 3 truths you can carry with you. 1. Silence is the most powerful response to disrespect. Jerome never screamed, never begged, never performed his pain. He simply acted, quietly, legally, and with absolute finality. There is nothing more unsettling to someone who expected chaos than someone who responds with calm, decisive action. 2. The life you're afraid to leave is not always the life worth staying for. We build routines, mortgages, identities around relationships, and sometimes those structures become the reason we stay long after the love is gone. Jerome teaches us that walking away from what's comfortable is not failure. It's courage. 3. The best revenge is a life well lived, in silence. Jerome never tried to hurt Ruby. He never posted her story online. He never told their friends. He simply became, and in becoming the best version of himself, he allowed her to face the natural, quiet, devastating weight of her own choices. That is not cruelty. That is dignity. Choose yourself. Walk quietly. And never look back.